Well, we are back with Choice Chats. I'm Shaka Mitchell with the Tennessee Federation for Children, and with me today is Josh Thomas, and Josh is the Regional Advocacy Director for the Foundation for Excellence in Education, which is quite a mouthful, so we're going to get him to explain what all those words mean. But for folks who are just tuning into what has now become kind of a weekly chat that we have, we're the American Federation for Children, and one of the things that we've been doing during this time of education during the pandemic is highlighting some of the bright spots, like what's going on, particularly here in Tennessee, around our state, highlighting some of the bright spots in education, because we know that there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. There's enough to go around, but there are also some really cool things happening. So we've been really pleased to have educators on and school administrators to hear from parents and why they made the choices that they have and how they're navigating this time. And so today we get to hear from somebody who's a little bit kind of got a different lens. Josh is in the advocacy space. And so Josh, let me just welcome you to the show.
I appreciate it, Shaka. You and I have known each other for a while, and this is a new role for me, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit maybe about what Foundation for Excellence in Education, or some of you may know it as Excel in Ed. That's kind of how I first learned about the organization. Give us like the elevator pitch for Excel in Ed, what it is, maybe how it started, that kind of thing.
Sure. So it was founded in 2008 by Governor Jeb Bush after he left office. And we're, he was known as an education governor. And so wanted to take some of the lessons that he learned in Florida and see if we could replicate them across the country, and then build on that by building a policy shop and focusing on performing educational outcomes. And so we do everything we're working on everything from very early literacy through normal choice in K-12 work, all the way up to higher ed stuff with college and career pathways and alignment of curriculums, and have a little bit of everything. One of the things that's interesting about us, we've got a pretty national scope. I cheated and looked in the annual report last year, and we were involved in 43 different states. I'm responsible for 5 of them here in the Southeast United States, and we do everything from we have a whole policy team that focuses on model legislation and things to craft policy, all the way through advocacy, which I do, and then we work directly with departments to support them on the implementation of this policy. So we kind of run the gambit.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that or ways that I have been connected to Excel in Ed, I know that in the past, actually here in the Tennessee legislature and the General Assembly, members of the Excel in Ed team have come to Tennessee to speak with legislators, to give testimony about, hey, here's what we're seeing in states XYZ, here's what it might look like in Tennessee, and to kind of bring in that some outside perspective. It's been one way that I've worked with you. So that's what the organization is. So you're the Regional Advocacy Director, RAD. You're rad, pretty rad. So for those of us of a certain age, we may appreciate that. But what do you do, or what do you think you're going to be doing?
Sure. So I'm responsible for the Southeast U.S., which is I have 5 states. I have Tennessee, Kentucky, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. And we have a whole series of policy recommendations that we have, and so my job every day is to work with partners like you in states. We've got great partners here in Tennessee, you being one of the chief ones. We have them in my other states, and we work with them every day to try to work with the legislature, work with governors, work with ed departments to implement high quality education policy.
Yeah. So let me just recount that. So Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah. So, and I should also say though, despite you having kind of this regional, scope of states that you're keeping an eye on, you are right in our backyard. You're a Nashvilleian.
Absolutely.
At least right now you are.
You and I actually don't live too far from each other. So.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, for folks watching, I sometimes see Josh. I can see like the trail of smoke coming from Josh's smoker just a couple blocks away. So, y'all come over to East Nashville and get some barbecue. Okay, so that's great. Well, I want to know though, so that's the role. That's like professionally what Excel in Ed does. Tell us a little bit about how you got, not so much to this job from like a resume standpoint, but why are you interested? What's the interest in education for you personally?
Yeah, so I grew up in Memphis and went to Memphis City Schools and have, the history there. And then I started my career working for Lamar Alexander, and nobody is better at education than the senator is. And I worked for him in the first term, and it was really, I ran his Memphis office, and it was really an interesting time. It was the advent of really the charter movement in the Memphis school system. And so I got to go to Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering, Memphis Academy of Health Sciences, like as those things were opening up, and we were going and doing events there. And he was always, very engaged in that. And I'll never forget. And it was always exciting for me because that was my school system. I went to a traditional public school, but to be there and see him interacting with them and learning about it. And so one of the things I'll never forget, we were at Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering, and it's the principal and some of the funders and different things at the charter school at this round table, and then one student. And that's the only person in the room the senator wanted to focus on. And I remember he said, so you came from, I forget what school it was, but it was a local school. It wasn't doing very well. And he said, you came from this school and you're doing significantly better. What's the difference? And the student looked at him, and I'll never forget it. He said, I'm expected to here. And I thought, that's the magic. That's how this works, is you're inverting expectation now. It's not that success is a few kids at a school. That's the bar. And we, as parents and as teachers and as even the rest of the students. And I thought that's magic. Yeah. And so I got really fired up about that and education work. And I went on to do kind of political work with the legislature here in Tennessee, and then in North Carolina, and then Kentucky. And so, candidly, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. We were expecting a baby, and I thought I probably should grow up at some point. And Excel and Ed was looking for their regional person, and it fit my passion. And it also fit my experience. Of my 5 states, I have deep relationships in 3 of them from day one, which was it was a great fit. Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about your time kind of coming up in Memphis. When you were a student, that would have predated really the charter school movement. And back then, it was one consolidated school district too, right? You'd have had just the Memphis schools. Whereas now it's Shelby County schools, and then you've got the kind of the municipalities. At the time we had the Memphis City school system and the Shelby County school system. Shelby County, in city and out city, and it's very different now. Yeah. So okay, that's right. And so talk to me about your. I mean, you didn't. What did school options and school choice look like for you, for Josh Thomas, the student? So we grew up kind of in the shadow of the University of Memphis area, and the elementary school we were zoned for was okay. It was an average elementary school, but it had what they had was what was called the optional program, and the optional program was a school within a school. And so at each grade level, they had 1 or 2 classrooms, that had a very good teacher, had, I almost call it, to use the high school vernacular, I almost call it honors elementary school, kind of. It's just kind of advanced. And so my parents wanted to get us into this program. And so what that required, my dad, who worked at the power company, would work all day and then go down to the school board and have to spend the night. And he would spend the night overnight in August, one night in August, so that he was one of the first, I don't know, 150 or people in the room, in the next day, so that my brother,
literally overnight, would camp.
Oh yeah,
effectively camp out.
Absolutely, bring a folding chair, bring some food. This is, and there was a whole line, I mean, of people who did it. I posted a story about this not long ago and heard from fellow school old friends of mine who had stories of their parents who had to do this same thing. And so, yeah, he would spend the night so that next morning he was one of the first people in the room so we could go to go. And because my brother and I are 6 years apart, he had to do it 12 years in a row for my brother and I. And while I'm incredibly grateful for the sacrifice of that, I'm also fortunate that, one, he didn't work nights and he could do that. I'm also fortunate that, my mom could take care of us and my dad could go do that. And I'm also, I'm pretty passionate about making sure that it ought to be easier for parents to be able to make education choices like that and to send their kids where they, to the best school for them. And so that's really what drives me every day.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I wonder, I mean, I'm sure that there are folks who are watching this in the Memphis area, or maybe even other school districts who have experienced similar things, like where you have to get in that, in even maybe more than a lottery system. That's not a lottery. I don't even know what you call that, but but having to camp out overnight. And I've seen the pictures sometimes from different school districts where they're doing that, and it looks like when people are trying to camp out, to get the sales after Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to be the first one through the door at Best Buy or at Dillard's or whatever to go get those.
Right. The problem is at the end of it, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I got a good education. You didn't get like a $30 giant plasma screen TV or really good concert tickets.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I mean, thanks to your dad then, right? Thanks to your dad for making that sacrifice too. I mean, I think to me, it speaks to some of the lengths that parents will go to make sure that their child has got at least great access if they can do it. Now, the problem is that the reason that had to happen in the first place is because there weren't enough good seats for all of the students. Now you got 115,000 or so students in Memphis, and there's just not enough. Only 1 in 5 of those students is on grade level right now. So here, maybe let's get into the guts of kind of the work and what you're seeing with your perspective at Excel in Ed. I mean, maybe give me one on each side. What's a sort of a particular challenge that Excel in Ed is working on right now? Maybe thinking about this like COVID, the pandemic, and where do you think there's maybe an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think one challenge that we're looking at and facing is, and we spend a lot of time working on is assessments in 2021 and what they look like. And when you say assessments, you mean like standardized tests? Standardized tests.
Okay. Yeah.
We have some reason to believe that virtual learning can work for some kids. We have some reason to believe that the learning loss is significantly higher this year than typical. But unless we actually assess kids, we don't actually know it. And so, we're working with, that's something that's pretty high on our list across the country, is to show the importance of still, having a commitment to doing some sort of assessment of where kids are, so we can get a snapshot of what this past COVID year has looked like. And the reason we do assessments is so that then we can go build, as parents and as teachers, we can go build programs that are child specific to get them, back up to where they need to be. So is that a reading camp? Is that a tutor? Is that, whatever that looks like? And so that's a significant project that we're working on. One of them we work on here in Tennessee that I'm excited about is early literacy, K-3 literacy. It's a program we work with Tennessee Scholar on a lot. And, we're working with the Lee administration on rolling out some changes and some training and some statewide programming on the science of reading and how we teach it to kids. Because, I'm an adult who loves to read, and I can point to exactly the teacher that taught me. My third grade teacher, Mrs. Coker at Willow Oaks Elementary, is the reason I love to read. Because she just taught it to us and taught us a love of it. And so, starting with the teacher training and then literacy coaches and kind of rolling out a program. So that's an opportunity that we're working on. We started working on last year, and then COVID kind of disrupted it, and we're pushing to work on next year.
Yeah, well, man, two really good issues. I mean, that testing and assessment piece. Interestingly, and if you're watching this in real time, feel free to drop a comment into the Facebook stream, and we can see this and we can see those and maybe get to those comments. One of the things that I've heard, I'd love to get to your response to this, Josh, is I've heard actually from a friend of mine. He's a kind of an education pundit here in Nashville, and he said, I don't think it's fair to test kids because they've been out of school for so long, basically, and therefore they're sure to do poorly on the test. How do you respond? I know what I said to it, but how do you respond?
I think the reason we do it is to get a snapshot of where that child is, and more importantly, to take action on it. And so if a child has gone backwards in reading or math, or we need to know this, so that we need to know it, not to punish the child, but to help the child. And so by getting be it tutoring or reading assistants or reading coaches or whatever it ends up looking like, we need to be able to intervene, and that's why we do assessments. And so it's not punitive to a child who is just trying to get through the COVID, and it's so that as a parent and as a teacher, we can make informed decisions about how to help that and how to help give them back to grade level and prepare them to go the next grade.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think a lot of people, maybe for good reason, maybe they have had bad experiences themselves with tests, or they think of tests as being the things that are designed to keep people out, right? Deny people access to something, versus using it as kind of a diagnostic tool. I had to jump my wife's car 2 weeks ago, and what's the first thing I did when I got up to AutoZone? I said, "Hey, can you test the battery?"
Yeah.
I want to know if I need a new battery or if I need a new alternator or whatever, right? I want to assess before I start spend all the money and taking all the time to start pulling parts out the car. Thankfully, it was just a new battery. Now that's really helpful. And also the science of reading is something we know is super important. I mean, I think pre-pandemic, fewer than 1 in 3 students across the state were on grade level in English language arts. And again, that's pre-pandemic. Gotta think that's going to be, that will have taken a hit.
Yeah.
After all this, what are you? I know. So you kind of alluded to it, but for folks who maybe didn't catch it, so you've been in this role. I mean, you're fairly new to this role at Excel now. So I'm not sure. And what a strange time to be starting a new role, right?
It's true.
Are there other states outside of Tennessee where you're saying, hey, that's a really cool, that's something really innovative that they're doing that you think, hey, maybe that's something that we should consider here in Tennessee?
Yeah, there's been a couple of things. One of them was in North Carolina in the final days of legislative session. They were able to do a micro grant. It's a $300 and some odd check to every parent, every family with kids, and they could use it for technology requirements for virtual learning. They can use it for their internet bill. They can use it for tutoring services, or any number of things. It's a small micro grant. It's not gonna. It probably won't. I mean, candidly, cover everything, but it's the state making an investment during these unprecedented times. I thought that was really smart. The legislature passed it, and the governor signed it. I thought that was a really smart idea.
Yeah.
I thought in South Carolina, it's obviously under litigation. The Supreme Court of South Carolina kind of punched it back, but I thought Governor McMaster's plan to use some of his GEAR funding for school choice, because parents are looking, if their public school isn't in person, then they can go look at other options if their child needs to be in person. So using some of his GEAR funding to authorize that, I thought was a bold idea, and the Supreme Court has made their ruling. But I know that the state is looking for other options there. But I thought that was a really bold idea about how to help people in this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been following both of those a little bit too, and that $300 and change, whatever it was in North Carolina, like you said, that's not going to cover all the expenses that a parent has. But $300 is not nothing. And right. I mean, I'll tell you, I think we got a Chromebook, a new Chromebook, or, that was into whatever. I'm not going to do a shameless plug for Amazon Prime Day. Maybe I just did one. But today's Prime Day. So if you don't know, now you know, go get you a Chromebook. I think it was $85, right? Yeah. $85 for that. One of my girls, we set her up with that, and we got a Kindle, and my 5-year-old can actually do her Zoom class or kindergarten class on the Kindle, and then we download books from the library, and so $300 is not nothing, and I do appreciate that investment. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch again. You might get whiplash because it's only a 30-minute show, and we're gonna hit lots of different places. But so prior to, and you mentioned this a little bit with working for Senator Alexander, but prior to joining Excel in Ed, you were doing a lot of like political work, and I know that frankly you worked with a lot of members back in the day of the Tennessee General Assembly to even help get them elected. Does that mean is it like the reunion tour now, or that you're seeing lots of people? How's that been?
It's I'm like the Rolling Stones. I'll just keep going till I die.
So you're 85 years old playing drums.
No, it is a little bit of old homecoming. The benefit of just my resume, and I thought one of the reasons why this job was actually a pretty good fit was I started day one with a bunch of relationships. And, on the political side in particular, you just build a credibility with members because you spend so much time with them, giving them, taking care of them and giving them the hard news that in a role like this, I think those relationships and that trust that's kind of already built is a real advantage. So I've started, obviously I can't do a lot of in-person meetings, but I've already started reaching out and to my friends on the Hill and here in Tennessee and North Carolina and Kentucky where I have experience. And I think it's gonna be a real asset.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there for a sec. No, I think that relationship piece is definitely going to be really helpful. And I think something that I also appreciated about Excel in Ed is that I think Excel in Ed, for folks who don't know, and we can we will certainly link to Excel in Ed in our post to make sure that folks can check out your website. Education is really complicated. There's not a silver bullet. It's not. I know that we have advocated for the education savings account. It's a program we deeply believe in, but I try to be quick to tell people it's not a silver bullet.
Right.
It's going to help. It's going to help the kids that it can help. But there's going to be a lot of other kids that still need something else, right? And even students who use the ESA, for instance, may still need different types of supports. And so I like that Excel in Ed has got this kind of multi-faceted approach to thinking about education that, where, like you said, you're talking about literacy, you're talking about charter schools, you're talking about choice, you're talking about teacher training and teacher prep. And yeah, I love all that. Do you see the pandemic maybe presenting an opportunity to really push the envelope on some of the things that you're working on at Excel and Ed?
I do. I think the pandemic has certainly given us challenges, but I think it's also opened our eyes to some things that actually work. So first of all, I think one thing we've learned here is that no matter how capable we thought our teachers were, they're more so. I think that's the first thing we walked away and learned. I think it's also taught us that systems ought to be more flexible, that every child is in fact different. There is no silver bullet. So I look at my brother has 3 kids, and 2 of them are wonderful virtual learning. They can virtually learn. They've got the discipline. They love it. They're fine. And his son has to be in person, or isn't learning, or they have to hover over them. You may have found that with your own kids. So I think we've learned that systems ought to be a lot more flexible in how they do this. I think course access is an interesting thing that we're learning in COVID. So, it's something that I'm deeply interested here in Tennessee. So how do we, if you're in a school that, doesn't have an AP history class, why can't you take that AP history class from another school system virtually?
Yeah.
Instead of just taking honors history in your own class or a standard history in your own school.
Right.
And now that we're in the mindset of virtual learning, I think those are the kinds of things that now you have opportunities to think about.
Yeah.
How do we cobble that together so that student is getting their education the best way they can?
Yeah, so that's course access, right? How do you access courses? I mean, I spoke with a friend. I saw him at Home Depot a couple weekends ago. We were distanced. We had our masks on. We were both getting mulch. And I asked how his family was doing. Well, his wife is a second-year med student, totally remote.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, to what you're saying, if we can train doctors, and I have no doubt that she's getting a proper training and qualified, whatever. If we can train, physicians remotely, then it stands to reason that a 17-year-old should be able to access a different type of course that they might be teaching just over the county line, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I think that is definitely an opportunity. All right. Well, I want to close because we're coming on time. And so I want to close with this. You are now thinking about education, both professionally and sort of, we heard a little bit of your personal story, but you're about to be a new dad.
Yeah.
About to be a new dad. So congratulations.
Thank you. Couple weeks to go.
Couple weeks. All right. Give me make sure I get an invitation to the homecoming barbecue. Barbecue at the cookout,
The benefit of being a Memphian is I don't live there any longer, but I still know how to make barbecue.
Yeah, you can do some barbecue. You can do it right. So what are you, I'm going to just ask you something we talk about a lot with parents when we meet parents is, what are some of your hopes, your dreams for your, I think, daughter? I think I've got that right. Yeah, what do you hope for her when it comes to an education? What's the education future that you hope she can access?
It's a really good question. I have, we like you, we live here in East Nashville, and my wife and I have already said that her birth, maybe, as we think about school, it's like, I don't know that the schools around here are where we want necessarily to go. And so does that necessitate a relocation, or are there charter options and other options? These are questions I'll probably ask you at some point as we get closer, because I honestly don't know. But when I think of the education that I want her to have, I think I want her to have a curiosity about life and to pursue what she wants to pursue. So I love history. I love science. My wife loves reading and loves English, and very different backgrounds. And I don't think there's any wrong answer there. And I want her to experience all of it so she can figure out what she likes. And I'd like her to go. I'd love to stay here in the neighborhood, and I'd love to get her to get a good public education here, and to go on to pursue. My wife and I were just saying the other day, we both have working professions and have our entire life that are very fulfilling, and how that's a real blessing. And I certainly want our daughter Elise to be able to do the same. And that starts with her getting a fundamentally good foundation that starts with a good education. So when it comes, when it comes to history and science, I'm certainly can nerd out with her. But when it comes to English, my wife will jump in and be helpful.
Well, we wish you and your wife the best, of course, and safe delivery and all that. And again, what a crazy time it is to do anything. 2020 is just a crazy time, but it's always a great time to welcome a new life to the family. So congratulations, presumptively, here in a couple of weeks. This will be, Josh, for your benefit, this will be saved online, so you can remember all these things that you hope for her education in 5 years, once she can actually read and learn to read and do all that stuff. In the meantime, we will say goodbye to our viewers. We'll leave you, Josh, to go learn how to swaddle a baby and change diapers and all that. Thank you for your time, and we're so glad that you're doing this good work with Excellent Ed.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Shock. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, folks. Take care.
That's it.